Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. My name is Bill Matz. Damn, I'm happy to be back. And this is Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat writer, Charlie O'Connor. Chuck, I feel like this is the longest, especially having you and I together, we've gone, like, since we started PHLY.
Well,
And
I went on that long break, the long vacation last summer, which was like a 2-week vacation.
That may have been.
So that was probably
What the hell
long.
did I do during
this
those
might
2
be,
weeks?
It's a really good question, Bill. I don't know what you did. A lot of Kelly episodes, I'm guessing.
I guess.
I guess.
Maybe we had shows. I assume we did.
Perhaps, it was the summer.
It
It's all a
was.
fever dream. But, Bill, it's good to have you back. You got some color.
I did.
Got some color on your little mini vacation.
Took a quick trip down to Cancun with the wife. 4 Nations, Eagles, our kind of breaks coincided at the same time. And now I am back, and I am happy to be back, Charlie, because today is the day for USA Canada 2. But before we get into tonight's showdown,
Okay.
listen back to yesterday's show. You guys did an amazing job. The Golden Nugget read, outstanding.
It was a pretty good transition.
But before we get
proud of that
into
one.
it, I just have to tell you about a little showdown that happened between the United States and Canada way back the year of our Lord, 1999.
Okay.
That the Americans ended up,
Pre-Y2K.
the Americans ended up winning, and the first star of that game, Jakob Pelletier. That is right. Believe it or not, from Atlanta, Georgia.
See, I did not know that. I truly did not remember that he was American. I assumed he had to be Canadian, right?
I assumed as well.
French-Canadian name.
He was the first star. He was a Phantoms prospect of the 1999 AHL All-Star Classic.
Okay.
Started for Planet USA in that game. Stopped 17 of 18 in the first period. Eventually named first star. Planet USA wins in a shootout. Robert Esch and Marty Biron also appeared in that game.
Did they really?
Yeah. Only allowed 1 goal. It was in the first of shooting gallery to Peter White. Kept the Americans in it. They end up winning. And since he was a Phantom, he gets the first star. I will stand for no Jakob Pelletier slander. Not on my show.
All right, well, here's my question, though. Because he's American, because if he was Canadian, and by Canadian, I'm obviously talking about French Canadian.
Yes.
You would say Jean-Marc Pelletier.
I guess so.
Was he Jean-Marc Pelletier? Is that how he preferred for it to be pronounced because he grew up in the States?
I was 11.
Okay. Okay.
So who's to say? Jean-Marc would probably make the most sense.
I was just curious. If
yeah.
this was like, I'm growing up around non-French speakers, so everyone's just going to call me Gene anyway.
Gene, yeah. All right. So that's that. I just, listening back, and Kelly allegedly was at that 99 AHL All-Star game.
That shocks me.
At the
Not
first,
even a little bit.
At the first,
Not even a little bit.
The first Union Center all the way back then. So I had to get that in just for all the longtime AHL fans out there. All right, Charlie. USA Canada, the rematch. We haven't actually got to talk about that amazing game that the two teams played with against one another on Saturday. First day back. Just trying to work out the kinks here. 3 fights in the first 9 minutes. I'm sure you're fuming about that. Or the first 9 seconds.
JT Miller found a way to punch himself in the face.
JT Miller wanted to fight so bad. He was like, "Who wants some?" And Colton Parayko was like, "I'll let you fight yourself." Anyone, I know you're against the staged fighting, but when it's the best players in the world, that's pretty cool.
It was fun. It was fun.
It was a fun way to start the game. I guess the news from the Flyers side of this. TK out tonight.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
I am just disappointed for him because we talked, and I want to talk a little bit about Sam Ersson maybe playing himself into the conversation for the Olympics.
Right.
At least part of it. They have to say, hey, what about Sam? At least once.
Yeah, they have to consider him.
We said this was that sort of opportunity for Travis Konecny, couple of months ago even. Are we like, oh, man, TK, Olympian? No, that never really crossed our minds. And he gets named to this. It's a year out. Precursor, maybe if he performs well, it's a different conversation next year. Probably not.
Well, I don't think he's been bad in this tournament. I just don't think he's been noticeably great. he's been fine. He's made some plays. He's done some things. He hasn't excelled. But in fairness, if you're looking at Team Canada, really, no one on that team has excelled aside from the guys at the very top of the lineup.
Number one picks.
Yeah, like they are the only guys who you watch and you just say, man, they look like they're having great turns.
That is a generational talent.
Yeah.
That is what you're looking
Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon, like those are the guys that are standing out. Everyone else is just kind of like, yeah, they're playing fine. They're doing okay in their shifts, I guess. But I would say that Konecny, while he hasn't been incredible, he isn't the only player, particularly the only forward. Yeah. He's not the only forward on that team that has not been incredible. It's just he's the guy who steps out. And like Seth Jarvis comes in. Seth Jarvis is also real good. Yeah, that's the thing. Their entire forward core is really good. So I can't bring myself to be angry about this. I don't think this is like some sort of major injustice done to Travis Konecny. I'm just bummed for him because I was excited to see both him and Sanheim in this game and see what Konecny can do in a winner-take-all. As I said yesterday, I keep about to call it the gold medal game, but it's not a gold medal game. It's the title game. There's definitely a trophy. It's the title game of this Four Nations face-off. But I would like to see what Konecny could do in a game like that. And now we're not going to see it. And that's a bummer. More than anything else, I'm just bummed.
And that's going back to the Saturday, the first matchup of these two with TK not out there. Like, do I expect him to fight in the first 9 seconds? No, despite what he said to Cutter Gauthier, not exactly. Right. Not exactly like your premier fighter, like a Tkachuk maybe. Sure. But that sort of game where everyone's finishing their hits, it's a playoff atmosphere, really fun, really intense. I just wanted to see how he'd do. Yeah. I just wanted to see him get that opportunity. Like we've said, he's had some playoff experience. The first time the series against Pittsburgh, I think that's his rookie year. And then 2020 is what it is. Like, was it even really the playoffs? Sure, I guess. But hasn't excelled in those times. But this is a different Travis Konecny. Like, that is a young guy. That is a guy dealing with a pandemic, like whatever the hell the excuses. I want to see this version of Travis Konecny, and I suppose we just have to...
we have to deal with just seeing Travis Sanheim.
Yeah, we just get to see... And listen, I like Sanheim as well. It's just, I guess, I don't know, just more exposure to TK. I like him more. Honestly, he's just a funnier, more fun player to watch, where you watch him and go, damn, I love this dude. And we're not going to get that opportunity. It's a bummer, but cool for Travis Sanheim, who is going to get to draw into the lineup tonight. I wonder if we can switch out some defensemen on both sides and try to get this thing like the final game in Slapshot. It's like, yeah, man, Ogie Oglethorpe showed up. He's in the lineup tonight. But that's not the case. But I am still, regardless, extremely excited for a rematch of what was, despite it only being 2-1, and honestly, after the first period, a different kind of game than it was to start. It was really, really good hockey, even if it wasn't 6-5 up and down the ice.
Yeah, it was really tight check. I thought I forget who said this on Twitter, but it was very true. The U.S., despite the fact that he is their assistant coach, he's not their head coach, they played a John Tortorella game. They played such a John Tortorella game.
If you're I'm sitting there watching the way that the U.S. is able to close that game out and just going, I'm more convinced than ever Mike Sullivan's going to be our next head coach. Absolutely freaking convinced. And we'll see if he's able to put it away tonight. But Charlie, are you amped up to watch this game for U.S. versus Canada, just best on best? What's your excitement level? What is your bought into this tournament level for this? Because going in, we expected the hockey to be good. It's all the best players, basically. Yeah. There's a few injuries and stuff, but it's best on best for the first time ever. Where are you with the game? It's a 4:10-ish, about 4 hours away.
I think I always expected the U.S.-Canada games to have juice. Now, was I expecting it to have quite this much juice? Probably not. But I was always expecting, I said it before the start of the tournament, that my read was that the U.S. and Canadian players really cared about this, and I was unsure about Sweden, Finland. Seems like they cared too. Maybe not to this degree, but those games were good,
especially when they're going to suit up against each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like what we have with Canada, but them.
That
like,
is true, and obviously Finland pulls the upset. But even like the Sweden-Canada game, Sweden was way more engaged than I thought they were going to be. I thought Canada was going to kind of wipe the floor with them. Instead, it's super close, goes to overtime. So I would say I was expecting U.S. Canada to have this juice. My excitement level is mostly just driven by the fact that we haven't seen this for so long. And the U.S. over the last, in terms of hockey, over the last 4 or 5 years, has been improving their talent pool enormously, especially down the middle. Obviously, the goaltending has been very good, but the goaltending, it's been good for a long time. Even thinking back to 2010, they had the edge in goal. You know, that was the reason why they were able to play so well with Canada. They had the edge. Here, like, I'm excited because I want to see if the U.S., they obviously already beat them once, but if you think back to 2010, they beat them in the round robin, they lost in the championship game. Are the improvements that they've made to the talent pool, the obvious edge they have in goal with Hellebuyck over whoever they throw out there, the fact that, no, are the U.S. centers as good as the Canadian centers? No, but it's not as glaring. Like,
they're still stars.
Yeah, before, back in 2010, it was like, yeah, Canada's going to control play because they have all the best centers. Like, Mike Richards is a 4C. Like, John Taze was on the fourth line.
Yes.
Like, that was how good they were down the middle. Now, this team, this U.S. team, yeah, Austin Matthews is pretty much, I would say he's not as good as Connor McDavid, but he's right on par with McKinnon, just in a different way. Like, they have just as many, not just as many, but they have the centers that can hang, at least in a single game, and not get the doors blown off them like has been in every other tournament I can remember in my history, where you're just like, yeah, Canada's going to blow them out down the middle. Well, not anymore.
And now, like, yes.
I'm excited to see if the U.S. can get over the top against a team that for decades has been clearly better than them on the big stages.
And it's, while the goaltending was like good, like it wasn't a disparity. Like, Canada still had, like, in 2010, Brodeur, Luongo comes in.
Yeah, Luongo comes in. Ryan Miller was playing better at the time, but it's not like there's a huge gap true talent-wise.
Yes, we're talking legitimate Hall of Famers for Canada. It's just like our guys played better.
Yeah.
Now it's, Canada doesn't really have anyone, and we're pretty sure they didn't even bring their best guys.
Yeah,
and we have Hellebuyck, who, listen, the Russians aren't in this tournament. We have the best goaltending in the tournament. Like, that just did it. Yeah. Hellebuyck has been the best goalie in the world for a couple of years now, and that's pretty much the way it is. So I'm excited for that, but you talk about how long it's been, since like U.S. Canada was this, and just how long it's been since we've had international best on best. Hell, even if you want to count 2016 with a team North America, a team Europe, like stuff that
still 9 years.
It's still 9 years.
Yeah.
Do you think this is replicable? Because I'm just watching this, and they're like, yeah, we're going to do, I think, the World Cup in 2028, they said. They want to go to the Olympics, obviously, but they want to have, like, this sort of thing every 2 years to kind of play off of the Olympics. Do you think, like, it could be this again because of the buildup?
Well,
like, this has so much to do with it's been so long, and we haven't been able to prove we're as good as them.
So I do think that this particular buzz is probably not replicable, but I think as long as they don't overdo it like they've done with the outdoor games, as long as they don't just keep going to the well, like, oh, well, we're going to have, 5 U.S.-Canada games this year because why not? Like, as long as they don't do that, I do think that it will still have juice, especially given the fact that the Olympics are coming back, because you're going to have this. Then that's going to juice up the Olympics even more. If the U.S. wins tonight, it's going to be, can Canada reclaim their hockey throne? If Canada wins, then it's going to be the U.S. got so close. Can they get over the top on the actual biggest stage? And then whatever way the Olympics goes, then in 2028, there will be juice off of that, because suddenly this gets to be a regular thing. So I do think there's going to be juice. However, I agree that the 9-year gap has added to it. And then obviously, of course, the political element adds to it even more.
And then there's that. Yeah. And we don't want to get into, like, honestly, we were just talking before the show, like, how much of this But like clearly it's a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Like there is a big part of this and the outside attention that this is getting. Like this is now bigger than what a couple of weeks ago, a lot of people were like, this tournament isn't even real.
It's gonna pull
this
in
is an exhibition.
The politics pulls in a casual element that might not, a bunch of people who probably don't even care about the sport of hockey, period, but are interested because suddenly it has a political element. And it certainly, it adds juice to it. Like it's a real bummer, I think, from my perspective as a U.S. because, like, I'm going to root for the U.S.
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
I've been rooting
100%.
I've been rooting for the U.S. hockey team my entire life. I'm going to, but like, I can't deny that Canada has a point to be angry that the president of the United States is saying that we're going to annex you. Like, yeah, you know what? Fair. I get why you're ticked off at us.
I could see that, and like you know that everything for me is wrestling,
Right.
Well. Nationalism, jingoism, like that is as big a part of professional wrestling as anything ever. And I do love, like, if you could just look at it as the entertainment product, a good guy and a bad guy, that makes a great story.
It does.
You hate someone, you love someone. Like they made a movie about Miracle. You know, it ain't just because that was a really cool thing that happened in a hockey game. It's because of all the other stuff surrounding it. And this other stuff has added palpable tension.
Oh, it absolutely has.
And I'm choosing to look at it like that because, honestly, I don't know. I'm still on a Super Bowl high, and I don't want to think about the bad things in the world.
I do wish, and this is something I've seen on Twitter that I 100% agree with, I wish that the main story of this wasn't geopolitical tension, and instead it was the U.S. team trying to win it for Johnny. Like that would have been so much better.
The other end of this is like you see when it all starts, and they have the jackets with 13 patches, and like if you played hockey, like that was it, USA hockey, like that's what it was, and Johnny a big part of that. Like
he was going to be on this team.
He was absolutely going to be on this
team,
and that part is kind of overshadowed now by the political end. And listen, not good reason. It is obviously a big deal, both in this small little hockey world and the big global picture here. But that said, it is adding a level to this.
Sure.
My next thing, totally changing gears. Can they ever do a regular All-Star game again? Like, we're seeing the comparison and it, like, perfect juxtaposition. If you want to be a please like my sport person, the NBA All-Star game up against US-Canada. Like, I hate those but my God. That said, I hate the NHL All-Star game. It sucks.
Yeah, I only like the skills.
Yeah, the skills competition can be some interesting stuff, but you look at what was and now, oh, look at this. Like, this is real hockey. It's not fake. Like, they are trying out there, and that US, my God, they were finishing every check. There's injuries. There's 3 fights in the first 9 seconds. Can they go back to, we're just kind of cruising out here, even if it is like one every other year or whatever they want to do? It has to be different, right?
You have to do something to give it some juice. Now, what that is, I don't know. And do I trust even a little bit that the NHL has the creativity to find a way to give it that juice? No, I don't. But I do think you're right that you can't just, and this isn't going to be a problem for next year because next year is the Olympics. So you can push it back. You have 2 years to come up with a good idea. So come up with a good idea. That's all I'm asking.
That's all I am asking. Before we go any further, I got a good idea for you. Just check out TrueMark Financial Credit Union. It feels like the holidays were so long ago, but maybe you've still got that credit card balance weighing you down. Well, now think about this. What if you could pay it off faster and with 0 interest until 2026? Well, it's true with TrueMark Financial because right now TrueMark is offering 0 interest on balance transfers for 12 months. So all your payments can go towards reducing your balance, not just covering interest. Here's what you got to do. Transfer your existing credit card balance from another institution to a TrueMark Financial Visa credit card and take advantage of this amazing offer. But you only have 8 more days. That's right, till the end of this very month here. So hurry up. And whether you're interested in earning rewards, cash back, simply prefer a low rate for everyday purchases, with TrueMark Financial, you can choose the credit card that best fits your financial needs. So visit TrueMark.com/compare for full details and apply today. That's TrueMark Financial, federally insured by the NCUA, equal opportunity lender. Terms and conditions apply. All loans subject to approval. 3% balance transfer fee applies. Standard rates apply after the promotional rate. And while we are here, why don't I talk to you about our friends at Ace Hardware? Because if you've got a leaky pipe at Ace Hardware Home Services, they're around the block with everything you need to fix it, including the person to do the fixing. I know I needed some home services for my air conditioner a few months ago. If you have that faucet, you're like, oh, I'll get to that. Well, it's been a year. You haven't. You need to check out Ace Hardware, because now they're not just the helpful hardware folks. They're also the helpful home service and repair folks. From plumbing to heating and cooling, they've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long at Ace Hardware Home Services. So visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project today. Feels good to get the first reads out of the way. It's been a little while. Thought I was going to be rusty, but I think that went pretty well. All right, so Charlie, what are we expecting tonight? Because I keep thinking back to 2010. It's like we got him. We finally got him, and then of course Crosby, golden goal, right. All of that. Just haven't been able to get over this mountain of, even when they've competed with Canada, the U.S., still can't best them in a winner-take-all sort of situation. Can they do it tonight?
I'm expecting Canada to win.
You're expecting Canada to win?
Yeah, I am. And maybe it's in part because I'm just used to this. I'm used to, Canada making it see, maybe we're going to lose this time, and then they don't. I'm expecting them to win for a couple of reasons. Number one, because it's just real hard to beat. Like, these two teams are really, really good.
They're awesome.
And they're both really good. This is the best U.S. team I think they've thrown out there in my lifetime, at least when I was paying attention to hockey and knowledgeable about it. Because I wasn't really paying super attention to that World Cup of hockey in the 90s. Yeah, that was before my time. I was alive, but it was before I was really focused on it. This is the best U.S. team I've ever seen. That said, losing McAvoy hurts. The fact that Canada's getting back Makar, he was not in the first U.S.-Canada team. He's one of the 5 to 10 best players in hockey, maybe the best defenseman, at least top 3 or 4. It's real hard to beat the same team twice in a row. The way that the roster, the lineups have flipped, and Canada did outchance the U.S. in that first game. Now, the U.S. played a really strong game. They obviously have the edge in goal. I don't know. I don't feel good about it.
I would have felt a lot better if they had figured out a way to get Quinn Hughes in over here.
Yeah. That would have been a good way to counter Makar, because Hughes is probably the only defenseman who has a really good case to say, I'm better than Makar right now.
Yeah, that's it. I was having this conversation the other, if I was to do a full league redraft, I'd probably take Makar first. But if I was ranking defensemen, Hughes might win. I look at Makar as positionless.
They're both really good.
So good. There's not a
Hughes is super dynamic too. Yeah. I don't think he's quite as dynamic as Makar, but he's probably smarter.
Yeah,
maybe has a slight edge in terms of the little plays he makes, but neither are huge. They both play. I'm simplifying this, but they play similar-ish styles. Sure. They're both offensively oriented defensemen who are good enough defensively because of how physically gifted they both are.
But either way, I am actually, I'm just very interested, because it's this is Canada and they have the Crosby, and it's is Sidney Crosby going to lose what is essentially a gold medal game? Hard to bet against him.
And he's had a great tournament.
And he's had such a good tournament. Yeah. But I just feel like the Kachucks and the Gaudreau angle, all of this, and not to mention best goaltending.
Yeah. The goaltending's key.
How often do we say nothing matters but goaltending?
If Hellebuck plays... If Hellebuck plays to his best and Binnington plays to his best, the U.S. will win this game, because Hellebuck is a significantly better true talent goalie than Jordan Binnington. I don't think anyone would argue that.
It's not particularly close. Yeah. So I am going to take the U.S., but I expect another tight-checking, low-scoring game. And That's the case, man. We have John Tortorella. We have Connor Hellebuck. I don't see how they can lose, quite honestly.
Fair point.
A little bit of other tournament stuff before we get to some Flyers news. We know that they're back at practice today. Or yesterday they were back at practice. Actually, Sam was back today.
Yes.
He met with the media. He answered some questions about, potentially getting on the radar for Sweden for the Olympics, and that's awesome for him. He played a great game against the U.S. What did you think of Ersson? I know you and Kelly talked about this a little yesterday, but I want to reiterate because I think it's cool for him.
Yeah, I think he played very well. Obviously, it wasn't a game where the stakes were as high as they possibly could have been.
Sure.
The U.S. did hit a lot of posts, but I thought Ersson played a very strong game. It's kind of like how I'm bummed for TK that he's not going to be able to show what he can do on this very large stage. Yeah. Obviously, the U.S.-Sweden game, nowhere near as big of a stage as the one tonight, but it was a bigger stage than Sam Ersson usually gets. How many people other than Flyers fans go out of the way to watch Philadelphia Flyers games? Let's be honest, not that many.
Listening to, I think it was yesterday's Puck Soup, where they're like, where the hell did this guy come from?
Exactly.
And they're like, you think John Tortorella's on the bench? Like, where the hell's this guy been for me all year? Well, listen. Yes, he played very well, but there's a little bit of a difference between the Flyers blue line and like a best of Sweden, even if it isn't like they're not a superpower. Damn. They're still better than like what the Flyers put out on a nightly basis.
And also, this is a legitimate point because we talked about this yesterday. Kelly and I did. You could say that, well, where's this guy been for the Flyers? He has been this guy since Christmas. He has a 920 save percentage since coming back from the Christmas break. So this, more than anything else, to me, feels just like an extension of the legitimately strong work he's put in for a month and a half. It's just that his numbers still look bad because the first 2.5 months of the year, they were not good. And that dragged them down. But really, I think this is a goalie who's found his stride this season. Now, whether he can hold it, we'll see. But he's found his stride this season, and he carried over that solid to strong work into a tournament against some of the best players in the world. And that was pretty cool to see.
Now, we could probably do this when we start talking about the team, but so we're talking about Ersson right now. Like, I'm hoping he at least gets a look of some kind for the 2026 Olympics.
Yeah, I do too. I hope he does. I'm sure he showed well. The coaches have to be happy with him.
Absolutely. I want to talk about his workload, though, for these final 25 games, because it is a question that he got asked today at his locker when he talked to the media. They said there's only a few back-to-backs. I believe there's only 3 back-to-backs in these final 25. So, like, spots where you're absolutely going to play your backup. Sure. And we've seen last year, these last few weeks, John Tortorella not all that interested in playing backups if he doesn't have to. You think he's going to get like 20 out of these 25?
Well, so here is my answer to that. If he's playing well, yes. I think the distinction between this stretch run and last year's stretch run was that they were in a playoff race. And the way John Tortorella looked at it, he's like, I want to get these guys to the playoffs. I only have one goalie who I can actually trust. I know he's struggling right now, but even a struggling Ersson is someone I trust more than Ivan Fedotov or Cal Peterson or whoever he would throw out there at that given time. Because they're not really in the playoff race this year, if Ersson's playing well, yeah, I could see him starting 20 out of 25 if he's playing well. But the difference is if he starts to dip, I don't think they will hesitate to pull back. Whereas last year, even though everyone could see he was dipping, towards just like, well, sorry, dude, I'm just going to throw you out there because you're our only competent goalie.
You're better than Felix.
Yeah, you're our only competent goalie. This time, though, if he play, like, he could play 20 out of 25, but it's only going to be if he's playing well. If he has 2 straight poor games, yeah, I could see them going for Fedotov for a couple games and give him a little break because they have that luxury because they're not looking at it as we need to win every game to make the playoffs. They all know that unless they go on a crazy run in the next couple weeks, the playoffs ain't happening. And I think that will change the way they look at it. So it's a little bit of a cop-out answer, but I do think that the circumstances will dictate what they do and what they don't do in the sense of if he's playing well, yeah, he's going to get the starts. But if he dips, they will pull back on him in a way that they didn't pull back on him last time.
All right, so Charlie, you joined the team back at practice yesterday when they returned, and honestly, I can't believe how many of these like tweets and DMs of things we got about the team. And it kind of slipped my mind while I was away. And then I was like, oh, wow, a lot of people. But you answered the question. Our long national nightmare is over. Jakob Pelletier he's
cleared,
part of the team.
He's got the visa.
He's got the visa.
He can work in the United States for a United States company.
Now, like we'll get to see him now, and we'll see. Like I've thought of him as maybe like, oh, this is potentially a Scott Lawton replacement. Maybe not a center, but a guy who kind of plays the excitable style, right. I believe, as you described it yesterday. And you compared him to Denver Barkey. I wonder if there's going to be some push there.
Internal competition.
When Barkey does eventually turn pro. But bigger picture here, and you have no way of knowing this because, we'll just have to see how it plays out. How do you think this could actually impact like the trade deadline for buyers? Like, do you think...
What do you mean?
Do you think a team is going to look at what happened with the Flyers and be like, well, we can't be without him for 4 weeks. Like if we trade for a guy, a Canadian citizen who's playing in a Canadian market, and he can't come here, like how do we get him on? Like, do you actually think this could be like a deterrent?
So here's what I heard. I spoke with an employee of another team.
Okay.
Trying to dig into like what the heck happened. More or less, I've heard that it's kind of a crapshoot in that basically what this guy told me is there are like 2 different offices that you can get the paperwork sent to, and you have no control over which office it gets sent to.
Okay.
If it gets sent to one office, it's going to get done real quick. If it gets sent to another office, it's going to take like 2 weeks. And like, I really think it's that dumb.
It very easily could be. The one thing I'm looking at is like checking out the standings. There's a lot of teams in it, but most of the Canadian teams, I think like the only team that's like in a position to sell is Montreal. So like we've seen Americans go to Canada, Joel Farabee, and that's was easy. No problem apparently. No problem and Canadians going to Canada, obviously they're from there. We'll see how that all works out. But I really was like trying to look into this, seeing who it could be a problem for. I think like that, like acquiring a Canadian player from the Canadiens might be the only potential issue for this to impact the deadline. And like teams would like to make moves, but we can't because we have no idea when this guy's going to get here. Like I think it won't be as big of a deal as I thought it was a couple of days ago when this popped in my head.
I don't think it's going to be a huge deal because even though Flyers fans understandably were having a conniption about all this, Flyers fans love to throw shit fits, for lack of a better word.
It's true.
But I think teams know that this is a thing. Teams go into these trades knowing that it may take some time with the visa. Like, they're prepared. Chris Tanev, it happened last year. It didn't take quite as long as Pelletier, but it close. Took about, I think, 8-9 days, something like that for Chris Tanev. This sounds like it took a little bit closer to 2 weeks. So teams know this. Fans are shocked when it happens because it happens so rarely, because usually it's trades between two U.S. teams because most of the teams are in the United States. It's kind of a rare situation, but it does happen. And I think teams go into these negotiations clear. I don't think the Flyers were shocked that this took a while. They might have been surprised it took as long as it did, but they were not shocked that it wasn't like a snap of the fingers and he's in the lineup kind of thing.
And there's the like built in, we haven't seen him in a month, but 2 of those weeks were off. Right. Like there's nothing you could do about them not actually playing games. But it feels like this whole thing took a month simply because that's how long it's been since the trade and then the break. All right, before we go any further, I got to tell you about what we're doing Sunday, fam.
Yes.
We are going back to the Flyers Charities Carnival. We had such a good time last year. We are doing it. It's actually our 3rd straight year that Charlie and I are going to be in the dunk tank.
That is true.
Kelly's going to be with us. We have an awesome lineup of guests. Jim Jackson, Lou Nolan, Dan Hilferty, Jonesy, Bradshaw, Tim Saunders, supposedly some more coming as well. No confirmation yet, but we have quite a lineup, so you got to join us for the show, 11 to 12:30, and then we're going to have other videos as well and all sorts of social media, shots of me and Charlie getting dunked in the tank. It's going to be a whole lot of fun, so make sure you check it out. Get your tickets, get your autograph booth stuff, all of it, and come say hi to us as we're going to be doing a show live from the Wells Fargo Center this Sunday, February 23rd, from the Flyers Charities Carnival. I cannot wait. It's one of my favorite days of the year. So proud to get to be a part of this with the team, and we're back. We're going back, all three of us, so it is going to be a really good time. All right, so that's kind of the newsy stuff, but the injuries, do we have any update on like Risto, Paling?
Tippett was still in a non-contact.
He was in. I
today.
Saw Jackie tweeted out he was in the orange "Don't touch me" jersey.
It appears that Paling looks like he's going to be good to go.
That's good,
which is great to see because obviously his was, out of the 4 injuries, his was the most concerning in the sense that it was a brain injury.
Yes,
obviously,
clearly
seems like he is on the road to recovery, if not fully recovered. That's a great sign. Ristolainen, like, he was close to playing 2 weeks ago. So I would hope he can play.
I was surprised he didn't go to the tournament.
Yeah, I was.
I think it kind of worked out for the Flyers that he didn't.
Let me put it this way. If Ristolainen can't play on Saturday, I'll be worried. Because that'll be like, you said he was a game time decision 2 Saturdays ago. He sat out the entire tournament and he's still a game time decision. That's concerning. I would have to assume he's going to be back in the lineup. Palin looks like he'll be back. Tippett seems like the guy who was the we'll see. And then Zamula.
Oh, yeah, Zamula.
He practiced in full yesterday, it looked like. We talked about it yesterday, though, me and Kelly. Like, I want to see Emil Andre.
And that's where...
he's not back yet.
That's what I wanted to know next is the guys who got sent down. Now, Rodrigo Abols, I don't think anyone's like, oh, well, we need Rodrigo back, even though he has looked pretty good. Emil Andre. Is this going to be a post-trade deadline thing? Like, is he back on Saturday and that's that? How do you think this is going to go with the guys who did get sent down?
Well, I mean, the Zamula recovery might impact Andre. What I can tell you is that at practice yesterday, both Andre and Abols still had their little placards up on stalls in the locker room. So that tells me that at the very least, they have not ruled out the possibility of bringing both of them back. I suspect a lot of it probably will boil down to who can play and who can't. You know, who's available to play out of these injured guys. Because they got 4 guys. They got Risto, Zamula, Paling, and Tippett. Now, if Tippett can't play and also Zamula can't play, then maybe Andre comes back. If Zamula can play, do they bring Andre back just to sit? I don't know. I think a lot of this is still pretty up in the air depending upon the status of the guys, but it does seem based on the fact that Abols and Andre both, and actually
Gaucher as well.
Tony Dick still had his placard up too. So they haven't made the full changes yet to the locker room. But I suspect a lot of this is going to be driven by injuries. I don't know if final decisions have been made yet. It comes down to who's available and who's not, who can play and who can't.
All right, and that gets us to these final 25 games, Chuck. I'm picking the U.S. to win tonight. Okay. So, of course, the Flyers come back. 1 against Edmonton, and then a home with the Penguins.
Right.
Obviously, they're going to be up against a pissed-off McDavid and Crosby, so that bodes well for we'll do a tankathon spin in a little bit. But just looking at these last 25 games, what should the Flyers' goal be? Obviously, what they are going to say, and it should be their internal motivation. We want to be that team that goes on that stupid run, makes like the Giants at the end of the year and flips off their fans and says, F your tank and all that. What exactly, like, who do you want to see finish this year strong? And obviously we'll start with Matvei Michkov here. You take a look at the rookie scoring race and he still finds himself in 3rd place. He seemed to be heating up a little bit in these games leading up to the break, and it was like, oh, of course, he's getting hot, and we're going to take 2 weeks off. But if nothing else, we've been looking at his play overall, really, since, the turn of the new year, and going, homeboy needs a break. Well, he got it. He looks refreshed. He looks like he was having some fun. If you're following him on Instagram, he got to take some time off, maybe recover a little bit. Do you think he can get himself back into this Calder race? Are you expecting that, or is it kind of decided at this point?
I don't know if he can win the Calder, but I am optimistic.
Do you think he's a finalist?
I am optimistic that he's going to finish strong. Do I think he's a finalist?
Because
he might not. Well,
there's two guys ahead of him scoring, but then you also have to look at Dustin Wolf.
Right now, no. Right now, I think he's fourth. I think he's behind Hudson. I think he's behind Celebrini, who is the favorite. I still believe he's the favorite. And then Dustin Wolf, I think. Maybe he could slip in ahead of Dustin Wolf because some people just don't pay attention to goalies, especially ones that play in freaking Calgary. But he would be in that third, fourth range, and I would say he's probably fourth. I'm expecting him to finish strong. So I will say that, if your question is where does he finish as a finalist, I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
Because I think he finishes out the year very strong. I think these 2 weeks are going to give him more energy. I think he's going to look energized. I think he can build off of especially that Washington game because that gave him the ability to go into the break being like, yeah, I'm still awesome. Like whatever the coach says, however many minutes I get, I'm still awesome, and give me a week and a half, 2 weeks to get my legs back. And why don't I do that every night instead of once every 2 weeks?
Just because you mentioned the Washington game. Did you see the quote from Alex Ovechkin?
Yeah, that was dumb.
He's really good. He's doing well. I wish he wouldn't show off so much. Alex Ovechkin?
Ovi, you were doing crazy stuff every other night in your rookie year.
I mean, now granted, listen, the type of rookie year Ovi had, and Michkov, I'm not disappointed. Like, I guess maybe a little. 27 games in, he's at a point a game pace, and he's got 9 points since then. That's disappointing. Alex Ovechkin broke 50 goals his rookie season. It's a little bit different.
A little bit.
But Ovi's the guy saying don't show off so much. I don't know. That needs to replace pot calling the kettle black after that is the new Ovechkin saying don't show off, buddy, the hot stick.
Yeah.
Come on,
this is
bro.
what you did.
Yeah, but obviously
I think that was the moment when I realized Ovi's an old man.
And
I mean, the gray beard definitely shows it, but that statement is like, oh yeah, he's old now. He's old now.
We also have to go back to that last game where even the goalie scored against Washington way back earlier in the season, where he looks over at Ovi, kind of gives him a little wink, and then in that last Washington game, tapped the one defenseman, he's showing up his teammates at this point.
Yeah.
So sure, it just made me laugh, and we haven't actually mentioned it. But some other guys other than Michkov, because that's again the main character of this season.
Yeah, fair.
That you want to see finish strong. I'm looking at Tyson Foerster.
Okay.
Tyson Foerster, it's hard for me to talk about what I think his sophomore year, and 25 games we're coming down to the stretch run. It's the final, we're wrapping it up, but it is still a significant portion of the season left, 25 games. Can he go from, okay, he didn't maybe take a step, but he maintained what he was last year, and that's a good sign, to, oh, he took a big step. Do you think he's capable of that in these last 25 games?
I mean, he's clearly capable of it. He got off to a really rough start.
Would it change your perception of what this season is for him if he finishes really strong? 10 goals in the last 25 games.
Sure, because then I'd look at his final numbers and he'd be at 25 goals. And then I would definitely have a higher view of his season. I don't have a negative view of his season, though.
Not negative.
I think he got off to a rough start. And then since, I would say, mid-November-ish, he's been basically what I was hoping for from him. He hasn't been exceptional. He hasn't taken that leap where it's like, oh, man, he's already Mark Stone, younger version. But I think he's been good. I think he's done nothing this season to worry me about what he can be. If he goes crazy the final 25 games of the year, yeah, I'll be even more excited about him. But I want to make it clear that if he doesn't go crazy, if he just scores, 7 goals and 14 points and is good but not amazing, it's not going to make me be like, oh man, got to trade Tyson Foerster, he sucks. No, I think he's had a fine sophomore season. He hasn't taken the leap, but he's had a fine sophomore season. And if he finishes out the season with a fine final 25 games, I'll be satisfied. Not super enthused, but satisfied.
All right. I want to get to a few more guys. I do want to finish up on Foerster because I have a thought about him. But first, I got to tell you about Glatt Hair Restoration. Have you noticed your hair thinning or falling out? Have you considered hair replacement or hair loss prevention procedures? Looking for a trusted expert to answer all your hair questions? Glad Hair by Morgenstern Medical can help. Their board-certified experts have performed thousands of hair and plastic surgery procedures, and each patient receives a complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment. Glad Hair by Morgenstern Medical uses leading-edge treatment for prevention and restoration, such as laser light therapy, non-invasive TED treatments, vitamin supplementation, topical and oral medications, and PRP and stem cell restoration. Caring patient advocates work with you from the first phone call to the last follow-up visit. They understand that this decision can be an emotional and challenging one, and they're here to help make your experience simple and stress-free. Glad Hair isn't just about restoration, it's about innovation. Their breakthrough treatments really do dramatically change lives. Change your hair, change your life. Bald is now optional. Regain your confidence with Glad Hair by Morgenstern Medical. Learn more at gladhairmctr.com. That's gladhairmctr.com. While we're here, got to tell you about Rothman Orthopedics as well, because if you have aching joints or cramping hands or your back's out of whack, Rothman's got you. At Rothman Orthopedics, they've been practicing specialized care, and it's been their passion for over 50 years. Their mission is high-quality, compassionate, and affordable care rooted in research leading to new treatments and better outcomes. Each Rothman doc is laser-focused on their specialty, whether it's hip, knee, spine, you name it. They have a team for each body part right in your backyard so you can get back to all of your specialties because they're Rothman Orthopedics, and they're specializing in orthopedics and you. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make your appointment today. All right. This may be something I wanted to get to when we talk about Jonesy stuff, but I think this applies mostly to Tyson Foerster. And you guys did a great job, you and Kelly, yesterday, of talking about Keith Jones appearing on the Gargano show. Check it out. It's on this very YouTube page right here. He talked about that trade, the Farabee and Frost trade, as a way to open up cap space and looking at this Farabee contract, $5 million with term, looking at what Morgan Frost might get. It was going to be a raise. You'll see how much in the offseason, but they just didn't want to be a part of locking themselves in to contracts where you're like, is this worth doing? Tyson Foerster, you and I have said, maybe it's worth making that Farabee risk again. You get him now, you have him locked up for his prime, and the way that the cap's going up, it looks like one hell of a deal if he hits whatever you think his potential is. Looking at how the Farabee and Frost situation played out and looking at Tyson Foerster maybe not necessarily taking a jump with his ELC expiring, is it worth the risk? Is it something that you're interested in? Do you think it's something that maybe they're afraid to do?
Well, here's the thing. It all would depend upon what he wants. You know, if you go to him and say, hey, we're interested in talking a long-term deal, 7-8 years, and he comes back and he's like, yeah, you got to give me, $7 million a year. And it's like, no, that's insane. You haven't done nearly enough to justify that. There's risks we're willing to take. We're not willing to take that big of a risk on a guy who, at this point in his career, is a 20-ish goal scorer. No, not going to do that. Now, if he comes back and he's like, yeah, I do like the Farabee deal, then sure, I would do that. I'm skeptical, though, that the Flyers would. And here's why.
Okay.
I think the way they look at it, and it's a very, I don't even think it's necessarily wrong. It's just like, I am laser focused on cap savings and maximizing surplus value and things like that, because that's my perspective. I think because they played the game, because they were in the NHL, because they've seen players have their motivation dip after getting big contracts, I think they are more going to be like, do we want to commit this kind of money to a guy who has yet to break out? And do we want to take the risk that then he doesn't have as much to strive for? I think that is important to them. I think they like the idea. Like with Owen Tippett, they really, really believe in him as a person. Also, he's older.
Yeah.
He was older when he signed the deal. He'd already had a bridge deal before he signed the big deal. I think they kind of like that, unless it's a guy who has exploded off of his ELC. I think they're going to look at it with a guy like Foerster and say, you haven't exploded. You haven't had that big breakout. We want you to stay hungry, so we're going to sign you to a 2-year deal, and then we'll reassess. Personally, I would rather them go let's take some risks. But I think you bring up a good point when you bring up Farabee, that they might look at Farabee and be like, well, they tried that, and maybe they might be a little gun shy. Even if it was Fletcher and not Briere who made that contract, they just got out from under a deal that they deemed to be bad. Really, the league deemed it to be bad, but they certainly deemed it to be bad. And that was the deal that was signed coming out of an ELC because Chuck Fletcher took a gamble on a guy and it didn't pay off. And they may be thinking, let's not go down that road again. Let's go the bridge deal route for guys who haven't fully broken out yet. Keep them hungry. And then if they earn the big deal, we'll pay a little bit extra.
And that's with the cap going up as much as it's supposed to. And we'll see. Listen, with this league, never count the chickens, etc. But I guess making sure of your evaluations isn't as like, oh, yeah, you get a sure thing. Well, yeah, now we have to pay him a whole big bag of money. In a flat cap world, like maybe it made more sense to take the risks because it's pay a little more now or pay a ton later, and there's no room for that. We're going to lose them. Now maybe it makes a little more sense to be more sure of your evaluations.
I disagree with you. I actually disagree with you because I think in a flat cap era, it almost made less sense to pay more now, especially if you are trying to contend now, which the Flyers were. Like, the Flyers were looking at, when they signed Joel Farabee, that was going into the offseason where they traded for Ellis, and they traded for Ristolainen, and they got Cam Atkinson. They were very much still trying to compete. And suddenly, you could have gotten Joel Farabee on a much cheaper deal. You had less cap space because you signed Joel Farabee to a big deal. And they were planning that like this was going to be a retool, and then boom, we're going to be right back in contention, and then we're going to be contending. We're going to re-sign Giroux. Everything's going to be great, and we're going to stay good through the middle of the 2020s. Obviously, that didn't work out. But signing Farabee when they did to more in the short term in what was a flat cap world, that cut down on their flexibility. They did it because they were like, Joel Farabee's going to be a future star, and we want to lock him up, and they were wrong. I think even if Joel Farabee plays better in Calgary than he did over the last calendar year in Philadelphia, I think we can generally speaking expect that he doesn't have star level potential. I think in 2020, 2021, when he signed that extension, 2021, I guess it would have been, they thought he had star level potential, and they're like, let's get this guy now, and they were proven wrong. In a quickly rising cap era, though, it would have made a lot more sense to sign a guy who you think could be a middle of the lineup guy because everything's going to get more expensive over the next 2, 3, 4 years. So in my mind, I think going long-term makes more sense now if you can get a guy to agree to it because of how much the cap is going to go up and how the percentage, like a $6 million cap hit, which is what I keep saying about the Owen Tippett contract, and nobody freaking believes me. In 3 years, that contract is not going to seem daunting at all. It's going to seem like a steal, even if he's the same dude.
We are going to have to see, like the royal hockey fans in general, because a lot of guys sign extensions right before and right after the trade deadline, because it's like, okay, I'm here. And then, of course, in the off season, when guys hit the market or guys hit their, okay, I'm doing extension in a year, let's go. When we actually see what the going rates are, where it's like, yeah, man, $5 million is like it's like a third liner now. We'll go, but it's going to take, and I'm talking about myself too. Like, I say this.
Everyone's going to have to recalibrate.
Yeah, like I've been saying for months, like we're going to have to recalibrate, but we're actually going to have to see the league do it until we accept 6.2 for Owen Tippett not being a 35 goal scorer isn't getting ripped off.
Yes, it's like I have to believe it when I see it. And I think over the next, maybe not this season, but I think next summer, when you see the free agent contracts pop, that's going to be the moment where people are like, oh, he's a $7 million player?
Yeah.
Really? Like it's going to be like that Chandler Stevenson contract on steroids.
Yes. I want to get to, because we only have a few minutes left today, I want to get to our Tankathon spin of the day, because I want to keep this going every day until the draft lottery. We're going to go to Tankathon one time and do it for everybody live. I did 2 spins on my own while I was preparing for the show. It didn't go well.
Okay.
So let's get to today's spin. Brenna, spin that wheel.
Chicago.
They fell to 7 again.
Chicago, Anaheim, San Jose. God, if Chicago gets... You know what?
I'd rather the Penguins win than the Blackhawks at this point.
See, the only reason why I'm okay if it would be Chicago is because that means they can't win it for a long time.
Oh, that's right. There's the limit now.
And if you're gonna win it, like if they're gonna win another one, win it in a weak year.
Win it in the year where they're like, there's no celebrating.
Like, don't get friggin' Gavin McKinnon next year.
Yeah.
Then I would die.
Of course, I always say, 2017, they told us that too. And there was lots of good players. We just didn't get any of them.
Fair enough.
We got Owen Tippett.
Eventually, in a roundabout sort
The
of
only
way.
guy we have left from the 17 draft. Isaac Ratcliffe is gone.
Yeah, it's true. No, they had three first round picks if you include Owen Tippett, and now Frost and Patrick are gone. Tippett's still here.
Tippett's still here.
Tippett's still here.
All right. I want to tell you all, you got to go to allphly.com right now, damn it, and sign up for this Montreal trip. It is going to be an awesome time.
Yes.
Yeah, we're talking about this Michkov getting back into this race. Well, it's going to be him versus Hudson straight up. We're going to get to see it live. We're going to, one of the centers of the hockey universe from April 4th to the 7th. So make sure you get over to allphly.com right now. Click that events tab and book this trip, man. It is going to be a great time. Montreal in the spring. It's one of Charlie's favorite cities on the calendar every year.
It is.
I think he was trying to get on this Four Nations trip so he could go at least for the round robin. But he's getting to go now. It's always a great time. Kelly loves Montreal. I've never been. Going to be partying on a company dime, so I'm going to be having fun. Philly Sports Trips puts on a hell of an event, April 4th to the 7th. Go right now. Oh. Do not delay.
And William, got a little pop-up trivia question for you. So going back to that 2017 first round, there actually is another Philadelphia Flyer.
Oh, Ryan Poehling.
Taken in that first round, Ryan Poehling.
He went a pick or two before Frost.
2 picks before Frost. So the Flyers do have 2 first-round picks from the 2017 first round. They're just 2 guys they didn't draft.
Hey, man, it's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable how that was supposed to... we can't live in the past, Charlie. All right. I'm going to do dealer's choice here. Do you want to do your Brent Flair interview, save that for tomorrow, or talk about more guys that maybe do some extensions?
Let me talk about a couple guys who I want to see have strong finishes.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Because you got Tyson Foerster. I want to talk about some guys I want to see have strong finishes. The number one guy, and I feel like not a lot of people are even thinking about him because I feel like it's either you think he is what he is and you've accepted it, or you just think he is like trash garbage now and that you don't even want to think about him. I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to how Sean Couturier finishes this season because
that is something
of how he finished last season.
Yeah.
I don't need him to be dominant, but what I need him to show is that he can play and be effective in a full 82 game season as a middle 6 center. I need to see that. I want to see that. I do not want to see another full-fledged collapse like we saw from him at the end of last season. I want him to show that what he did in the offseason, last offseason, has prepared him to survive and play pretty good hockey for a full 82-game slate. So I'm definitely going to be paying close attention to Sean Couturier.
He is a guy I want to get more into tomorrow a little bit because there was something tangentially that came out of the Jonesy interview that just got my wheels turning.
Okay.
But go ahead.
And then another guy who I want to see continuing to take steps forward, I want to see Jamie Drysdale finish strong. First off, I want to see him play. I want to see him not get hurt.
Yeah.
But I also want to see him, because I think low-key he has taken strides this year.
Yeah.
Now, not as big strides as we would have hoped. He isn't establishing himself as a clear-cut top 4 defenseman yet. But at the very least, I think he's establishing himself as a clear-cut, play-driving, sheltered third-pair defenseman. I would like to see him continue to take strides. I'd like to see maybe some more offense pop. Get some more assists, do something on the power play at the end of the year. That would make me feel better about him going into next year, which is the year when I think next year is the year I am hopeful you see him take a legitimate step rather than this, which was more of like a let's stabilize and make it clear that you are an NHL player and let's fix the big things. And then next year, hopefully you can take the jump into being an actual guy who's making an impact on a nightly basis. But to get there, I want to see him finish strong.
And I just want to say, we appreciate those of you watching on television. Head over to allphly.com for more of the show. And yeah, Charlie, Drysdale is... I know we just made like almost this mistake with Morgan Frost where it's like, we're just going to keep giving him the time and then if he fails, he fails, so be it. But I think I'm ready to do that with Jamie Drysdale, where it's like, even if we end up selling low or he doesn't hit his potential, whatever it is, I am willing to give him through this season and into next year before I'm like, he is this or he isn't that.
I would agree with that.
And
I
maybe not the best, most efficient way to run your team, but you just have to give him every opportunity. I know Couturier didn't come out. He's not going to win the Calder. He's not going to score 30 goals. And maybe it's not the worst thing in the world that we don't have this guy like maybe we thought it was when the trade went down. But you did give up your only top 5 pick.
Yeah.
Like maybe they get one this
maybe
year.
They get
they're
one
at
this
6.
year.
But like of these dudes, yes, maybe Michkov should have gone 2. Fact of the matter is he went 7.
Yeah.
And Gauthier was the only dude in that, oh, yeah, man. Maybe you wanted Jiricek or somebody else in that spot, but we picked him at 5. Could very well be the highest pick they make in this rebuild, retool, whatever the hell you want to call it. I know people get mad when we say rebuild. But
people get mad at everything.
I know. But, like, I want to give him every opportunity to prove that it wasn't a bad trade. And if it has to go into next year, so be it. But I would love to see him turn it on a little bit after these 2 weeks off.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I don't care as much about the fact that he came from the Gauthier trade. I just think he's a guy that is going to take time, one way or the other, whether he's bad or he's going to be good, whatever. Like, you were always going to need to give him multiple seasons to figure out what you could get out of this guy because he was just so raw. He missed so much time due to injury. He was rushed to the NHL. This was never going to be a, 2-month-long reclamation project. This was going to be a 2 to 3 year reclamation project. And I don't think we are close to reaching the end point of that. And I am skeptical of getting rid of him and just selling low before we at least see a couple years of Bradshaw trying to mold him into a defenseman that can make a nightly impact.
And I realize, like, we live in a different time now. Guys, a lot of players come in 18, 19, 20, and they're at least show signs of what they could be right away. And we don't like to take that certain amount of time to develop. But I remember not that long ago when we'd go, defensemen just take longer. And I think about, it was worth the wait for Shane Gostisbehere. It was worth the wait for certain guys, especially maybe you have to learn to play at this size. Maybe you have to learn, like Emile Andre, how not to get killed out there. Like, okay, I can do certain things and I have a lot of skill, but if I'm getting killed 1 out of every 3 games, it's going to be really hard to develop that skill. Maybe it is just going to take that little bit of time, but I think he's huge.
And I'm more willing to, because I admit some skepticism about the idea of like, well, defensemen take longer. Well, anybody can take long to develop in the right or wrong situation. But I'm more willing to give the Flyers some leeway on the idea that, well, it takes longer to develop defensemen, given the fact that this coaching staff has done it on multiple occasions. Like Travis Sanheim took a leap in his mid to late 20s. They got more out of Sean Walker and Rasmus Ristolainen in their mid to late 20s. So we've seen this group do it. Nick Seeler, they got more out of him. So there's a track record of them getting more out of guys who are on the older side, which gives me more confidence in just letting them have some extra rope with Drysdale, who has more physical ability than maybe not Sanheim, but everybody else clearly on that list.
All right. I believe we only have the one super chat, so let's hit Vineet Singh here. He says, if Elias Pettersson is available, do we even want him at this point? Vancouver fans would love to offload his contract.
See, this is the perfect time to get him.
Yes, the 11.6 is a huge investment, but as we've been saying, look at what that number is going to be in a few years. And the entire basis of the John Tortorella experience is that these are learned abilities. You can become a dog, He can make losers into winners. Why not get a supremely talented dude? I realize down year really didn't show up in the tournament, and that's gonna.
This is 3 games.
This is like World Juniors.
It's like 3 games.
This is like World Juniors, where we're gonna have these crazy oversized, like, oh yeah, America, it's the team to beat now. I don't know, they still have McDavid and McKinnon.
Here's my point, okay, and this is something that everyone needs to keep in mind as the Flyers go, big game hunting, trying to get guys in trades. The only reason why a guy is available in a trade is because there is a reason why the team wanted to trade him. Like, I think people have in their heads that like one day they're going to wake up and the Flyers are going to just present them the next Eric Lindros, like a dog with a bird in it or a cat with a bird in its mouth. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what, like, no. The only way you trade for a guy is if there's a reason why the other team wanted to trade him in the first place. And the reason why another team wanted to trade a guy is because they have legitimate reasons to be skeptical. And that's when you swoop in. You're never,
or a team blowing it up.
You're never going to get a guy without some flaws, without some concerns. Because if he had no concerns and no flaws, they wouldn't be willing to trade him. So if you're going to go the trade route, especially when it comes to high-end talent at center, the position that everybody wants, they're not going to be willing to trade a guy unless there's a reason why they might be souring on him. And you just have to do your homework, go for guys with high-end talent, and then hope that it clicks with you. That's the risk you have to take getting involved in the trade market, because if you have Connor McDavid, you're not trading Connor McDavid.
That's a great general answer. EP40, are you in or out?
Yes.
You're in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, I'm more in now. I'm more in now because, to me, now it makes more sense because he might not cost as much because people, and I say this with love, Vinny, because people are low on him because they're watching tournaments and they've decided that he doesn't have that dog in him because he wasn't friends with JT Miller. Now, suddenly, I think you might not have to give up 4 first-round picks to get him because suddenly people are like, do you even really want him? Those are the guys I want. The guys who there is a 15%, 20% of the fan base who's like, do you even really want him? Is he actually that good? Then those are the guys you get, because the guys who everyone agrees they should get, you're never going to get because the other team thinks the exact same way that you do about it.
Unless they just go, I ain't showing up to work. You got to trade me.
Oh, yeah. That happens once in a while.
Every now and then.
Not that often.
All right. And that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We'll be back tomorrow again at 4 o'clock with our live show, so make sure you tune in for that. Subscribe right here on the YouTube channel. Hit that reminder bell so you never miss a live show. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers, and follow the podcast wherever you get those. Just search PHLY Flyers. That's it for us. I am Bill Matz. That is Charlie O'Connor. Until tomorrow, let's go Flyers.
We all silly like the mayor.